that makes sure that all of you guys are in the loop.
Yes.
So yeah. So what are we doing next? Ooh, we ready to get in the word?
I'm always ready to get in the word.
Do it. Well, you guys, this is a mainstay segment because we loved it ever since we started doing it every time when we were planning for season 3. So we are back in the word again. And today we're talking about the topic of family and community. And that'll be something that is brought out more in the conversation that we have with George Moore later on in a little bit. But we're going to get into the word and first and foremost see what God says about it. And we got to understand that the big picture, God didn't just save a person. Like he didn't just save me. He didn't just save Jariel. He didn't just write his word for me, write his word for Jariel. It's about a people, right? God saved a people, he created a people, and he is wanting to bless us as a people. So we're going to talk about his love and how he made us a family. So we're going to first get into the word in First John chapter 3. Yes, God's love makes us family. So no, you're good. You're good. And y'all pray for Jariel as I'm talking and stuff here. She's gonna be trying to follow me with the slides. So let's look at the text. It says, "Beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we shall see him as he is." So part of that, the big understanding there is the fact that we are in process, like of becoming like Jesus. But the part that I don't think we look at enough there is the first part of that passage, is that we are God's children. We are God's children. And so I think just from the start, we have to recognize that there's a we who he's talking to. Like there's a community of people, that it's not just you. It's not you are God's child, which is true. But in the bigger sense, it's we are God's children. And he also says we are God's children now, right? So we don't have to wait to become a child of God. If we are in Christ, we are his child now. We are God's children now. Jesus did the work, and then we simply receive that identity. And look how many times he even says we in that. So, beloved, we are God's children now, and what we will be has not yet appeared, but we know that when he appears, we shall be like him, because we like he's making it real clear, we is what this is about. The work that Jesus did, he took isolated orphans and he invited us, in from the cold, right? And a lot like how John Patrick has done with these kids in Uganda. And he gave us a family, right? Jesus gave us a family, a father and a family. And we aren't just gods. Like we don't just belong to God in that work that Jesus did on the cross, which I think first and foremost is a core truth we all need to embrace, that we are gods, right? But he also gave us one another. We belong to each other, right? So I am Jariel's brother, right? Jariel is my sister. And that doesn't just mean for us, but anybody else watching this or in other parts of the world, that if they're in Christ, they are now our family. And we are, all part of that family that Jesus created through his work on the cross. So God's love through Jesus turns a you into an us, and no longer are we an I, but we are a we. And you can search the Bible. Look, I encourage you to get out the word, and you will see over and over and over again that is, as much as us Americans, if you're an American as you're watching this, tend to think individually that this wasn't written to a person. This was written to a people. Like so many of the books is like to the church in Philippi, to the church in, like it's to a people that the entire book and each of the different chapters are intentionally written to. Though our relationship is personal and it's with us and God, like there's an understanding that our communal life with the Lord is with Jesus and the family that he built, right? So we have a communal responsibility to one another. And that's why the church is so important. And that's why, look, I'm gonna give you all a challenge, and I think I might have said it in another season, but church online is a dangerous thing depending on how you do it. Because what it can do is it can convince you that just watching a sermon is doing church. And the truth is, you can't be the church without the family. So if you're just watching a sermon every Sunday, that's great. Get more of the word, and then get in the community of God in some way, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be in a physical building. It can be online, but like do actual engagement with people. Like maybe you're on Zoom calls, or maybe you're showing up in people's houses. And that's a lot of what we do in our ministry. But you can't simply just be in relationship with the Father and think that you're truly living out what he's called you to, because we belong to each other. Ephesians 2:19-20 says this. So now you Gentiles are no longer strangers and foreigners. You are citizens along with all of God's holy people. You are members of God's family. I mean, it don't get more clear than that. Right? Like you're no longer like this isolated stranger who's a foreigner, who's, out in the cold, but now you're part of this family. Like you are citizens. And citizenship, I love that word too. That comes along with, yes, privileges, right? But also responsibilities. There's a responsibility to be a part of that family and to care for one another, because God's love makes us family. We do belong to each other. Part of your identity of a believer, I mean, the truth is this: it's wrapped up in us. Yeah. Right. So one bottom line I think you should take away from this quick conversation is, while we talk about identity, you don't know who you are until you know whose you are. And I think for many people, they get clear quickly on, yes, I belong to God. I belong to God. And that's true. But you also belong to one another. You also belong to your brother and your sister, because we belong to each other. And we're not just like family. We are family. We're not like play cousins, like Auntie Tammy, not just my play cousin. she's my real sister, like in the realest sense. And like that's something that honestly even goes beyond blood, especially in the way that so many in these days can walk away from family. Yeah. And let bitter differences say, I'm walking this way. We're going to be family for eternity. So we need to lean in to the unity, lean into the conflict. And though conflict has an opportunity to divide us, and that's what the enemy is trying to always do, we actually got to let it make us stronger as we work through it together and process it. And that ain't talking about being fake. That ain't talking about ignoring who you are. That's talking about being real, calling people to be accountable for how they're engaging with one another in the family, but like not quitting on the family. We got to understand we each have a role to play in this family. We each have different perspectives, gifts, talents, personalities, responsibilities based on those things. And it's ultimately not about us, but it's about the people of God all growing up together and looking more like him in the process. The word just reminded us that when he appears, we shall be like him, but we shall be like him. So we need to help and strengthen and encourage one another in that process of sanctification that the Lord is walking us through. But don't lose yourself in the process. Like you still are you. Like, so, but be you. be unique, lovable, special, you, but understand that you're not yours. You don't belong to you. You belong to God. You belong to your family. And we belong to each other. So I wonder, Jariel, do you have any story to share or any moment you can think of from your life where um, either you realized that there was a greater need for you to recognize family, or maybe leaning into family was a struggle, or where disunity came about?
I think like sometimes, when you're in a church, you have a church family, things go on, it's a church and it's
Yeah,
like family.
yeah.
So then there's like church gossip. And I
Mm,
think like at times there's times where I've like failed to shut that down, and as opposed to
mm,
just, you know, not sitting there engaging in it, but not saying like, hey, that we probably shouldn't be talking about this,
right.
or hey, that's
Like
not.
like unintentionally, like giving it an approval.
Yeah, just with
Right.
silence. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
in those moments, it's like, oh man, I didn't stand up for
Mm.
my family, or didn't contribute to unity in the family by saying, hey, this isn't right.
Yeah. And that's so hard. That's so hard though. But at the same time, what is that they say? Silence is violence.
Yeah.
And like the work that's happening, and this is what I think what we need to keep our head on about this. The work that's happening in that moment is
Mm,
actually not the work of God. That's
yeah.
the enemy working as
Yeah.
that gossip is happening to try and destroy the family that
Yeah.
God's built. And so the silence is violence is there, is like that
Mhm.
silence is now basically giving an open door to the destruction that the enemy is
Yeah.
trying to do. And I
Yeah.
don't think we often think about it like that in those moments. We're just
Hmm.
like, I don't want to cause a problem. And I've
Yeah.
done it
That's
too. Like
uncomfortable.
I've done it too. But I'm not
Yeah.
trying to make an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah.
Like I know that what they saying is wrong. And like there's even this game that we play in our head of like, well, I'm not saying it. So you know what I mean? But then after the fact, you realize, man, like a fire was just lit. And
Yeah.
like though it might have been dangerous for me to engage with it, I had a bucket of water. You know
Mm,
what I mean?
yeah. And I
Like,
just,
actually, now that's a really good way for me to think about that.
yeah. Yeah. Like, I just poured the bucket out instead of using it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or I'm just sitting there holding it, like, nah,
Yeah.
you don't need. Nah, I'm not. No, no,
Yeah.
because you don't want to get all wet right now. So
Yes.
I'm gonna just.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you
Yeah.
for being
Yeah.
vulnerable. But there's a story that I heard that, and I think this helps for us to understand our mutual need for one another, of these men that were on a ship, and one of them took out a drill, okay, just like, and he started drilling in the wood at the bottom of the boat, right?
Mm.
And you're like, what? And the others said to him, so what are you doing? What are you doing, bro? And he replied, what do you care? Like this, like, is this the spot that's underneath you? No, it's underneath me. This is underneath my area that I'm drilling. And they said to him, but the
Mm.
water will rise and it will flood us all on this ship. And I think that's what we need to understand in the family of God, is like we are all in this ship together. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And like God is calling us forward, and we have to not just focus on our little area, but like understand how we are connected, and the fact that we have a responsibility to one another because we belong to one another. So I think we should walk away from this time remembering who we are, and that we're not just an I, but we are a we,
We
as we
are
belong to
we.
one another. Yeah. You're not just, what's interesting, like when you think about identity, we always want to start with I am, and then we'll end with this. We always want to say, oh, I am such as I am such and such, I am such and such. And I think it's cool in the fact that like that was the way that God introduced himself to Moses. Like when we have an introduction of God there in the text, and he says, you can say I am, like I am that I am, say that great I am sent you. Right. So in a sense, our identity is wrapped up in I am, right? Because our identity is tied to God. But the truth is, we should really understand ourselves more and more as the great we are.
Mm.
So we're not just an individual, but we are a we. Like, we are God's chosen. We are children of light. We are blessed, even when it looks like the world has cursed us. We are victorious, even though when it looks like we're broken. We are the head and not the tail. We are, and not just I am. So we're family.
Yeah.
Family. We are family. No, I'm never gonna sing again. Oh goodness! Any final thoughts you want to share on that, Jariel?
No, it's actually a good reminder, because I think, especially today, like, the church seems so like disjointed and divided, just a mess, really. And I think we don't even see each other as family. We see each other as just like different factions, like that. There are those the Christians, there's those Christians there, but no, together we're not together at all.
That is so true and difficult. And Rashonda agrees. We are family, and we just have to remember that. And look, like, you've been to family reunions, you've been to the family cookout, and there's the cousins that are annoying, and there's the ones that you wish would shut up, and there's the ones but guess what? In that sense, let somebody who's not in the family come up and try and start something.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? All of that family beef is squashed.
Yeah.
And like, we are a squad. And like, don't you even, that's my brother. And that's the piece that we miss. Is that, like, yo, we can have our differences, and we can not be on the same page about this and that. But at the end of the day, yo, we are family, so don't try and test us. And we got to understand, the one on the other end, the one who's trying to come to the cookout that ain't invited, that's the enemy.
Yep.
And like, we need to raise up as a family and be like, no, you ain't getting none of these ribs, fool. Exactly. Get up out of here. You ain't invited to the cookout.
Exactly. That's a good analogy.
You ain't invited to the cookout. I'm gonna start saying that from now on. And I think what's important though is we gotta separate it from people and the work of the enemy. You know what I mean? Because we see too many times that these people are against us and and the enemy is just like getting off scot-free. And we don't recognize that, like, yo, our problem is not with flesh and blood. Our problem is with these dark powers and principalities. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so we need to come against that as we engage. That's because that's the only way you actually have victory is because that's where the Lord is working. That's where the Lord is fighting. He ain't trying to like shut down people. He shut down the devil. So anyways, did I go too deep? Did I get off? Uh-oh, you're frozen. I think we lost Jariel or we lost me. One of the two. I don't really know. Oh wait, there you are. It might be me though. She gone. She will be back.